Welcome back, everybody. In today's video, we're going to be discussing about something that can make a grown-up man cry like a little baby. And I'm not talking about losing a match in League of Legends. I'm referring to the Englund Gambit. So, what I'm going to do in the beginning, I'm just going to give away the 3 key lines that you really need to remember to refute this opening. And then I'm going to let you decide if this is something that you can recreate. So first, I'll just show them and then we can discuss if you're still interested. Now, first important drill, the Eric Rosen line, the famous little trap, 97. Don't take it. This is all you need to know against it. Moving on. The second drill happens when black tries to regain the e5 pawn, goes in for the queen check. The first ramification will appear after knight b4, which is also similar to resignation. If you remember the following moves, c5, rook b1 important, and then knight d5 forces resignation. This is drill number 2. And the last ramification can happen if instead of moving the knight, they go with the bishop, where important to play the same rook b1 and knight d5, with the key move being to not accept the fork but play rook d1. In a nutshell, this is genuinely all you need to know to get a close to winning position from the Englund Gambit. Now, to get a better understanding behind the thinking process that you need while playing these kind of positions, I'm just gonna leave you with 2 games that I played on my speedrun account. So, enjoy. And now we just play simple chess. So, his problem is not that black is losing immediately. The issue is that we can just go bishop e2 castle. And his rooks are disconnected, plus more importantly, the bishop is really struggling to actually develop. So technically, black will be up a pawn, but the king is vulnerable and the bishop cannot be developed. Simply because, okay, like normal developing move would be d6, but after d6 you can take. And then he has a very big weakness on d6. We're going to be able to win that pawn by force. And if you try to solve the problem of the bishop the other way, then d7 becomes very weak. So black is just doing very poorly in the long run. And on a move like knight e7, okay, we can think for a little bit. Also, if he plays queen a5, by the way, feel free to pause the video and find the best move. Important simple decision making. When king is weak, just play c3, keep queens on the board and, well, continue developing. On knight e7, okay, I'm not sure. I want to kind of consider knight g5, but always if you do that, you lose e5 pawn, so it's usually not a good move. Probably keeping it simple is best. Bishop e2 and then castle. Okay, I think I'm just gonna do that. Rook e8 feels risky, but because it's stalemating the king. Rook e8, maybe then knight g5. I will also have queen f4 ideas to pressure f7. The nice thing about this position is that pretty much our pieces are really nicely protected, and yeah, black just has difficult coordination. And he tries queen a5 like I mentioned in the past. Critical moment. If you trade queens, he's gonna get time to slowly but surely, let's say, not lose instantly. I mean, he's gonna get to develop the bishop and we're not gonna be able to punish him. So just c3 to exploit the fact that my opponent has already lost the right to castle. This is pretty much game-winning move. Not like finding a tactic, just playing c3. Keeping the queens on the board in a situation where his king is vulnerable in the long run. He's pretty much paralyzed for the rest of the game. Okay, I'm expecting some rook e8, but I don't know, I have a feeling rook e8, there should be some concrete issue with the move. Maybe I just simply castle. Could also just simply castle and allow him to take on e5, because maybe I just have queen g5 check. And then take on g7. Yeah, looks just crashing for him. With king in the middle. Not for him, but we are crashing him. Hope you understood that right. And okay, I mean, Englund Gambit, it was fun for like 5 moves, but yeah, you have to also go to your job in the morning. So playing Englund Gambit till 3 a.m. can definitely backfire. He tries to do d6. Solving problem of the bishop, but I mean, I have ed5, I mean ed6. For some reason, I cannot speak chess. And okay, if he was taking, I had simple move, knight e7, and then pick up the pawn. He tries to do it this way, but I mean, I have ed5 just to beat the tempo, or I can also throw in intermezzo. I think I'm just gonna go simple move. Yet again, I'm staying away from the queen trade. I don't want to give him an easy time. I'm gonna keep queens on the board, attacking the knight. The knight pretty much has to go back. Question mark. And okay, I have DC knocking at his door. I have castle. I have queen g5. Interesting moves to consider. Let's look for a second. Queen g5, okay, if he moves the king, I have straight up mate. So if queen g5, f6, maybe queen g7, something to be interesting. Rook is attacked. He can try maybe queen takes on c3, intermezzo. I can block with the knight. His only move would be rook e8. I have queen takes on f6. No, I don't have it. What am I saying? Queen is protecting. Okay, we're calculating a little bit more than I would love to. Maybe queen g5, f6, queen g7 is crashing, but generally you don't have to, yeah, calculate so much in advance. What do I want to do? I think just DC with castle is easiest solution. So I'm not trying to go for instant kill. Just playing it simple, getting all the pieces involved, because our opponent is pretty much gonna get outnumbered. These pieces are pretty much struggling to get into the game, while yeah, we are simply gonna get to his king. It's even pawns, but in order for black's position to be okay, he would need to switch places with king and rook. If his king could stay in the corner and then get rook to the center, he would be sort of okay, although this pawn is still dangerous. But right now, he's just gonna get slowly open with d6, knight e5 incoming. Okay, he tries to use queen as a blockade to my passed pawn, which is a pretty bad blockading piece in general. Normally, knights are best blockading pieces. You want to prioritize usually lower value piece for defensive tasks. And I'm thinking of queen g5, trying to infiltrate. It makes me think that he's trying to block. I don't really see other move. I mean, I can go for the trade. But yeah, I feel like there should be more. I kind of want to use the rook. Also, there is c4, c5. Also, I feel like the knight could be activated. So, I have a typical situation where my knight looks good, but it's actually not doing that much. So, I'm thinking to play knight g5, targeting f7, and also threatening to remove the blockade. So, knight g5, I think, should be probably pretty good in this position. Here again, I don't need to kill him instantly. This is the type of situation where I have a much better possession as long as you don't blunder anything. His weakness is there in the long run. His weakness is there to stay. His weakness is there to hold. Like you buy Bitcoin 10 years ago, you just hold it for 10 years. This is how he's having this weakness. That may or may not be the best analogy. Take it with a grain of salt. What do I want to play? So there is d6, bishop c4. Okay, d6. I think he kind of has to go bishop out. because I'm just sort of threatening to lock him. I also have just very simple move rook e1 activating. There is also knight e4, but then where? Where is that going? I think I'll just play d6. Maybe bishop e6, I just push d7 to sacrifice for the sake of opening up his king. Could be interesting. But I mean, you get to see. Like you play Englund Gambit, king on d8, pawn on d6. Yeah, he gets the good block here right now, but my pieces managed to activate, so I feel like it's a little bit too late. Now I'm considering to just increase pressure over f7. f7 it's a weak pawn because it cannot be protected by other pawns, so it's kind of drawing the eye. And I'm considering queen d5 or bishop c4 as moves to pressure. Bishop c4, knight e5, little bit annoying with the tempo. So queen d5 feels like a better attempt because on knight e5 there is a little bit of a trap. So feel free to pause the video and find the final trap in case of knight e5. The idea is that I'm planning to actually just take it because then I can regain the knight with a fork. And he doesn't really have a way to defend, like playing rook f8 would actually be stepping into a fork. So problems are starting to add up for my opponent. Rook f8, okay, I have simple move. We can go for simple move. I feel like there should be more. Maybe going for mate. Okay, queen c4, the problem with this is that it's sacrificing the knight. Is it actually worth it? I feel like it should be worth it if we just pin him. Yeah, that should be good. Okay, we're going in. We're going in. We're not going for the low-hanging fruit because I just feel like there should be more. His king is just stalemated in the center. Notice that both these guys are not participating and... yeah, next up... okay, you can pause the video and try to find the most precise continuation. My first instinct was bishop b5 to pin, which I think is perfectly good, but I think even more flexible is rook e1, preparing to deliver a nasty discovery. Is that the move? Am I missing something? Let me double check. Rook e1 is gonna go rook h8. I mean, I must be winning somehow. Okay, let's do rook e1. So this is like only move to not get mated. f6 allows double checkmate. So he has to make room for the king. And then I'm gonna discover him. Okay, knight e5, but now I have the other discovery. I mean, not a discovery, but a check that's difficult to protect. And bishop d7, I'll let you pause for the final time. Because we get... ba-ba-ba-ba! Get a pretty nice spin. Okay. Okay, that was fairly nice. I don't know. Let's check it, shall we? That felt like a very good game to me. What? Only 88? Dude. I'm actually very curious. What could have been a better move? So like 95, this was pretty much theory. Until this point, everything was theory. Like I kind of started playing on my own here. So I took... yeah, so as I was sort of expecting, going in right away was better. I just didn't want to have to calculate too much. Like this position I had in mind, but apparently, yeah, you just castle. Giving up the bishop, black doesn't have moves. Okay, rook c1 is like nice detail. You infiltrate, just gets wide open. He played knight b8. I mean, I just wanted to play more of like simple chess. Knight g5, time to activate the knight, like I said, and there is knight e6, cute idea that I didn't even consider, but played it simple with d6 and then queen d5. So I sense the weakness of the pawn. As I said, it cannot be protected by other pawns, and then well, this is easy win, but queen c4 just felt like going in. And okay, I didn't calculate till mate. Like this, I had to still figure out, but I mean, come on, it has to be at least bishop b5 taking the knight would have been completely winning. Like that one I had in the back of my mind as a safety net, but apparently, yeah, there is forced checkmate if you find rook e7, targeting both this and that. And my opponent actually just doomed. So, yeah, this is pretty much how you want to be dealing with the ultra concrete Englund Gambit. Just a key reminder, if opponent starts with a knight, putting all of his life saving on one roulette spin, you have to remember knight d4, and after c5, very nice and simple intermezzo, rook b1. Get rid of the queen, get rid of the knight, and then get rid of your opponent by using this little double attack. And in case he tries to play the Eric Rosen line, bishop c5, d6, just don't take the hanging knight, just do something else. Like knight c3 is a good move, protecting the queen, and then develop your pieces normally. So, yeah, I think with that being said, we can move on to the Alwyn game. Welcome back, everybody. Getting a white game against an opponent from Dubai. Okay, it's actually not Dubai. The Emirates are not only Dubai. Okay, and my opponent plays... he's trying to be tricky. He's trying to play the Englund Gambit, but he is not going for the traps, which is also something that you kind of need to know how to play. So, against the knight c6, knight f3, queen e7, bishop f4, check, bishop back, queen b2, knight c3, and then quick rook b1. White is close to winning. But on the d6 one, it's just a matter of pretty much playing the conversion game. So I like to start knight f3, giving him the option to take, and then important to go for queen trade and recapture. I don't give him easy bishop development, as many newer players would be tempted to. Bishop g4, okay, we see the threat with his last move, so he wants to eliminate the defender of the pawn. Therefore, I can protect, or I can play more standard, okay, not really more standard, but just another good move, bishop g5. With a tempo where normally the black players move the pawn to f6 from my experience, although he could also just do something else. Okay, I actually had many games like this in the past, and we get interesting possession after pawn capture. Because, well, I would say we have choice between two bishop squares. Probably they're kind of equally good, I would assume. I haven't really checked this possession. But one important detail that I quite like about bishop h4 is that we're still pressuring the f6 pawn, which, if you take a close look, it's not protected by other pawns. So if, let's say, he had the pawn on g7, the bishop would have been quite restricted, but now my bishop is actually exerting a lot of pressure, so he needs to be careful. And okay, after the bishop capture, I think I'm just gonna stick with e takes, keeping only 2 pawn islands. So I'm gonna have only 2, how do you say it? 2 pots of land that is actually not landed, it's pawns. While if you take with the pawn, you'd have 3 islands. So it would be worse from a structural perspective. You don't have least pawn islands, the better. Okay, goes bishop g7. Now it's just going to be time to pretty much finish our development. So please remember that we do have an extra pawn. So this means pretty much we just need to play a conversion game, and we don't really have to play any interesting aggressive chess. Just try to be efficient. So what does efficient mean? It means that after queen e7 check, you can either play bishop e2 or castle, with castle, but I'm a big fan of the queen trade. So whenever you have an extra pawn, if you queen trade, I would say half of the job is already done. So it's already done because this pretty much gets rid of pretty much most of our opponent's tricks. Without queens on the board, it's going to be very difficult to create counterplay just because the threats are going to be much more obvious and we can defend against them with ease. Now my opponent plays a good move. He is opening up the bishop's path. The problem though, I think we're able to move the knight on a central square and then restrict the enemy bishop. So normal move like castling would also be okay, but I see knight d5. I had a quick look over bishop b2, and after rook b1, white is winning. Both the bishop is under attack and c7 fork is threatened. So a king move was required, but now I can either long castle, protect the pawn with the king. Important little idea. Many newer players have blind spot to this move. Or I can play c3 to restrict the bishop. I think I'm just going to start with the castling because it's sort of more prioritizing development. And c6, it's an active looking move, but it's also sort of weakening the pawn. It's no longer protecting it. So I'm going to have to move the knight. I have many squares. I can actually go back home. In fact, quite often I see games by low-rated players when their knights are getting attacked. And they have this sort of feeling that, okay, if you go back, it's just almost like admitting defeat. But in most positions, just going knight back is the best move. Not going any fancy squares, and then the knight gets somehow lost. It's probably better in this position to just play knight e3 and prioritize the tempo move, but to prove the point, I will go now knight back home. Let's go knight back home. He gives bishop. He is damaging my pawn structure, but that comes at the cost of giving up the precious bishop. So it's a, let's say, so-and-so trade. It's reasonable. I don't think we're winning or gaining anything. I think it's a just possible trade. But after d5, you do have a great strategic move. So please feel free to pause the video. Yes, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and find a very critical and important positional idea. Because we can utilize the so-called concept of trading off your weakness. First, you need to identify the weakness, but here we do have doubled isolated pawns. So we're gonna start by trading them off with c4. This is why pretty much d5 was a big mistake, because it just allows us to get rid of the bad pawns and we're not gonna be having any weaknesses anymore. I can actually just go ahead and trade next, bring the rook, or if he does the knight move defending, I can do a very simple little idea. Remove defender of the pawn. But I'm going to start with the takes. I'm going to give him option to sort of self-pin, because guess what? There is going to be another pawn. So we actually win the full knight, which is why I haven't rushed with taking it in the first place. Now, very important, when you have a pin situation, you need to calm down. So on a move like rook e8, it's common to get really excited and just go ahead and take the knight. but then you give the bishop for free. So it's very important to just be able to pause in these little moments and see like, okay, he has a threat. I got my own thing going on, but just pause to keep control. Very important for converting these kind of games. You have advantage. It's very easy to stay in control if you just watch out for your opponent's threat. So he's attacking my bishop. I can defend it multiple ways. I'm just gonna bring the last piece into the game and save this little guy. Then I'm gonna be collecting the knight on the next move. Very simple way to keep control and never worry about this thing. Okay, we have, I don't think we have an extra pawn anymore, but we do have a full extra bishop. And the next goal would be to go for the trades. So prioritize the trades. I'd perhaps start by improving the position of this bishop since it's an active bishop, but it's not really targeting much. I'll just give a check, see where the king wants to go. Probably safest is c6. I mean, as safe as c6 square can be in this position. And when the king goes to c5, I think we just attack the pawn while offering a trade on the open file. So we play conversion game while we also try to play tempo moves. Now, another rule that you want to remember while converting is to look to trade pieces of similar activity. It's quite important. Generally, if you trade your most active pieces for the enemy least active piece, that's gonna potentially cause problems. But if you trade pieces of similar activity, then you're never really gonna get in trouble. That's the golden rule. And please feel free to pause the video and go for the final touch. White to play and pretty much force resignation because we have a nice little prophylactic idea. My opponent wants to play knight c6 and then kind of try to develop, but I can say no knight c6 for you. You're getting pinned, sir. Plus, I'm also actually threatening to win the knight. So you see how nicely the bishops are able to pressure from the distance. The bishops are actually greatly placed, even on squares like g3 or h2. You don't need to have the bishop in the center to be active. Bishops are very nicely hiding in the bushes because they are long-range pieces. Also, they say about bishops that are already semi-developed pieces on the initial square just because they're already quite effective. So there are many openings where you can actually delay bishop development for a while and just focus on attack. And all right, I think we're still trying to play for trades. So I'm gonna offer him a trade with a rook. I'm expecting him to decline it with rook a4. And now the king is pretty much stalemated. I don't have an easy way to check him, so I'll have to defend against the threat. So I think I'm just gonna be using the rook to silence his move, and yeah, I think we'll have to try and use the bishop somehow or the passed pawns. But he goes rook c4, giving me easy trade. And now this is pretty much highlighting perfectly why you want to give him in these positions. You want to get him into the position with naked king and no pieces. There's generally no way to mess it up. Unless you stalemate. Okay. Probably half of you don't know what stalemate is, but just make sure to watch out. He always has a move. We're just gonna collect the rest of his stuff, and I'm just gonna promote to a queen. Probably get the second queen. I normally recommend getting the second queen in these situations. Just to the ladder checkmate. But okay, let's move the bishops away, and then let's promote the pawns. Gonna push the PP. Gonna use my king also for this procedure. I'm nicely catching him in a box, which is not required, but always more aesthetic points. And okay, let's try to get, what are we trying to get? We're gonna get a bishop checkmate. So we're gonna go boom. Oh, we can actually get a pawn checkmate, which is even nicer. We're gonna go for the pawn checkmate. Boom. And then bang. Nice. Okay. If you feel like you learned something from this video, subscribe to my newsletter, alexbanza.com, because I'm preparing something very big. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you around on the channel. Have a good one.